Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this press conference from the 14th annual meeting of the new champions here in Tianjin, China. Welcome and good afternoon to those of you here in the room, and welcome to our audience on the live stream, whether you're watching on our website or on social media channels. We're very happy you're joining in. We're back in China as the World Economic Forum after a 3-year hiatus. I don't think I need to explain what happened. I think you're all keenly aware. But this is number 14th, as you can see, of the annual meeting of the new champions. We're here together with about 1,500 leaders from across the globe, from business, private sector, and civil society, to discuss the pressing issues that we face as a global community. And one of the things that is very high on the agenda here is jobs, is skills, is the workforce. And I'm very happy to welcome you to this press conference. I'm joined by a wonderful panel of leaders from PwC who are here to present you the latest insights from the PwC Global Workforce Hopes and Fears survey. And just to give you a couple of numbers to begin with, this survey covers more than 54,000 respondents across 46 different countries, of course, with a big sample size from China, but also from Asia Pacific. And I encourage all of you, both here in the room and online, to go to the PwC website, look for the Hopes and Fears report and check it out. It's really fascinating reading. And we'll have the chance to hear firsthand from this wonderful panel here today. So I'm joined, and we start at the far end of the plenary. I'm joined by Elton Yeung, who's the Vice Chairman of PwC China. To his right side, and always on the right side on these topics, we are joined by Peter Brown, who is the Global People and Organization Leader of PwC. He's based in the UK, but really nobody's perfect. Right at the heart and center of our panel, we have the pleasure to be joined by Thomas Leung. He's the Managing Partner Markets of PwC China. And to my immediate left, I'm joined by Amy Kai, who's the Managing Partner for ESG at PwC China. A little bit of housekeeping. We'll hear mostly in English, but we'll start with a brief statement from Elton in Mandarin. So for those of you who are not able to speak or understand this beautiful language, there is translation both here in the room, but also if you're watching, there's this little button where you can choose your audio track so you don't miss anything. Without further ado, welcome again. Please, sir, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. 各位媒体朋友
Friends from the press corps, good afternoon. Great to have you here to participate in this press briefing of PwC in the coming 30 minutes. Our partners and experts will share the report results. And this is what we had in 2023. We have subjects that come from 40 countries and regions or so, and altogether it's 54,000 or so in Asia Pacific. Around 20,000 workers participated in this survey. The data in the report shows that the challenges that are faced by enterprises. It also shows opportunities. Now I'd like to give the floor to Mr. Brown, Mr. Speech, for this moderation.
Peter, I think you had the longest trip to get here as well, make you work the hardest, so it's worth your time. Very briefly, what were the top findings? What were your key insights from the report?
Yeah.
If you would be so kind and share that with our audience.
No, of course, absolutely. And good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us. So look, many of you, I think, will recognise kind of the world in which we live and the fact we are facing a huge amount of pressures and challenges, right? And we know from our CEO survey in January that 40% of CEOs say that unless their organisations change, transform, reinvent themselves, then they will be economically unviable in 10 years' time. So what we do, 6 months after the CEO survey every year, we do the study, the hopes and fears, really to work out what is on the mind of workers. And we do it across industry lines, public and private sector, in the 46 territories that Gorg mentioned at the start there. And I think the key findings from this study is that on the positive side, that workers are they're up for the challenge of transformation. They recognise, 40%, 39% of workers recognise that economic viability point around their organisation. Interestingly, Gen Zs, those up to the age of 26, 27 in the workforce today, they're more pessimistic. 50% of Gen Zs think their organisations will be economically unviable unless they change, right? What the workers tell us, though, is they are wanting to embrace the opportunity to upskill, to develop themselves to be relevant, to be able to be more productive, and to contribute to that reinvention of their organisations. What they also say to us is that they're positive around the opportunity afforded by AI. They see it as something that enables them to be more productive, to remove some of the mundane in their day-to-day work, an opportunity to develop new skills, and actually ultimately an opportunity to create new job opportunities. There are some cautionary pieces of analysis we've done around the data we've received. So I think I'll start with, in this world of reinvention, of transformation, I think we know from the pandemic just how extraordinary human beings are when faced with a challenge, right? To transform when they're empowered, when they're given the skills, the resources to do their job, and they do remarkable things. Only 50% of the workforce say that they are fulfilled in the job they do today. I think that's a concern given the challenges we face, be that technology disruption, be that the green transition, be that, frankly, that we all live in a world where we're getting older and the ageing workforce. And if organisations are to reinvent themselves, the criticality of that workforce being motivated, empowered, and ready, and really being able to focus on the execution of that transformation is vital. And so with half the workforce saying they're not really engaged with their work, that's something that I think business leaders need to consider. There's a couple of other things I think that we should take account of. The cost of living crisis is real around the world. The number of workers around the world with income left at the end of the month after they've paid their bills has reduced dramatically, from 48% down to 37% this year. That's a significant challenge. Moreover, 20% of the world's workforce say that they have to do at least 2 jobs, predominantly to pay the bills. Some would cite to get new skills, but 70% of that 20% say they need to do it just to be able to pay the bills. So I think that's introducing a stress, an understandable human stress, on workers. And back to my point around executing against the reinvention, the transformation that is required, you want your workforce to be empowered, not to be worried by that. And we've got a big proportion of the workforce that has these financial concerns. I think there's a message there for leaders around really seek to understand the financial challenges that many workers face. And a bit like in the pandemic, where organisations took very positive actions to focus in on mental health and well-being activity, right now, I think really focusing in on financial well-being is so important. Despite those economic pressures and the cost of living challenges, 1 in 4 people say that they are actively looking for a new job, a new employer in the next 12 months. 1 in 4 people. That's an increase in last year. Okay, so despite those challenges, I think leaders who think the Great Resignation is over, perhaps think again, because employers are active. Many will want to move because they want to get more money around the cost of living. But what's also really noticeable from the data is that we are seeing the emergence and the widening gap between those that have specialist skills and those that don't. 53% of workers say they require specialist skills in order to do their job. That cohort of the workforce will broadly be more demanding of pay increases, of promotions, and seeking out opportunities to apply their skills and experiences. They will also be the people within an organisation that are more likely to get opportunities to develop themselves and for upskilling. And they are also very aware that their job will be transformed, often due to technology, and they will say that they need to develop human skills, problem solving, collaboration, leadership, teamwork, networking in order to be effective. And I think really to bring that powerful combination of human ingenuity and technology in concert to deliver the outcomes. Where I think that presents an opportunity and a challenge for business leaders is you've got, again, half of your workforce that don't have those specialist skills. They are often, according to our survey, they are unlikely to recognise the impact that technology is going to have on their job and the skills that they will require to develop to maintain relevance within the world of work, not only in the organisation they work, but in the world of work going forward. And I think back to that challenge around transformation and you needing an empowered workforce and a skilled workforce, that cohort that lacks specialist skills, I think, is an urgent requirement to offer opportunities for them to develop those skills such that they maintain relevance. My final point is around the execution of this reinvention of organisations and the transformation required. We know that when people are motivated, when they enjoy their work, when they feel they can be themselves in the organisation, they are likely to be their most productive and to give their most. Okay, so what's interesting there is when we surveyed CEOs, 50% of CEOs will say they think their leaders within the organisation will tolerate small-scale failures or constructive challenge around the status quo. When we ask the same question of workers, it's a dramatically different picture. Only 30% of workers globally say that they work in an organisation where small-scale failures, appropriate debate and challenge of the status quo is tolerated and acceptable. I think there's a cultural challenge there for many organisations, because if you want to innovate, if you want to reinvent yourself, and when you are innovating, let's face it, you are going to make some mistakes. That's how we learn and develop. It's so important to have that inclusive culture within your organisation that embraces people, a diverse population of human beings and talent, enables them to be comfortable to be themselves so that they can ultimately be most productive and contribute to those business outcomes that the CEOs and their shareholders and stakeholders are so keen to deliver.
Thank you, Peter, for these insights. Really fascinating. I have to say, if 1 out of 4 is looking for a job and we start counting here, I think you're number 4 on the panel, but I'll let that aside for now. Thomas, everybody on the panel has skills, but you're the man for the skills, right? You took a closer look at how our skills developing, what skills are missing. Maybe we can dive a little bit deeper on that topic with you, please.
OK. So 因为我看今天的受
The audience is more of Chinese background, so I'd like to switch to Mandarin. Especially what I say is more related to China, especially the data we collected in China. As Peter mentioned, globally in Asia Pacific we have around 20,000. In China we surveyed 3,000 subjects. We find interesting phenomenon. After COVID, 75% of the people have this hybrid working. And then furthermore, 15% are full-time on a remote basis. That's in China. Let me share some data points with you, as Peter shared a lot. It's about requirements on skills and ideas and insights. Let me share some data. First of all, business viability is one important thing. As we mentioned earlier, in January, we'll have the CEO survey and results were released. CEOs, employers found that in the coming 10 years, their economic business model may not be viable. We asked the employees in China. 48% of the Chinese employees say their companies could be viable over than 10 years. Why this is the difference? We did not analyze the differences, but it's an interesting phenomenon. As our expectations go, you see, the senior, the baby boomers, the elderly are more optimistic, the younger ones are more pessimistic. Then secondly, if you look at China, 49% of the subjects said their skills have to be changed in the coming 5 years. Half of them said as an employee, their employer will provide opportunities for upscaling, as Peter mentioned this. But let me stress this point with you.
So, talking about the soft skills. So besides the technology part, we also talk about the leadership, flexibility, the adaptiveness, and based on our observation in China, compared with the Asia-Pacific regions, China has more focus on this. So with the technology progress, with the AI development, we also can see that the soft skills will be more important and for the employers. And in this employer training, and we hope that this can bring some inspiration for your staff development. We also talk about the climate change. In China, the employees, they feel that their employers, when taking action in the climate change response, they feel that their employers in China are doing more because they have the stronger awareness. And later, Annie will give us more elaboration on this. And talking about the staff and the staff sentiment, there is one thing very interesting. We found that, generally speaking, in Asia-Pacific, we have 57% of the informants feel satisfied. And in China, this number is 70%. So maybe some of the employers are doing quite well in China. But one other thing interesting is that a lot of employees, they are trying to find another job. So if you look at 2027, 47% of the staff hope to get promoted and get a higher salary, and 33% of them are thinking about changing the job. So although they have the higher satisfaction compared with the Asia-Pacific average, they still want to find another job. Maybe this is because the market is more flexible and dynamic. So technology part, new technology, AI, and the others, the acceptance of the Chinese staff are higher. And 44% of the informants feel that this can improve the productivity. The average in Asia-Pacific is 41%. And for the new skills, the average in Asia-Pacific for the acceptance is 34%, but the Chinese number is 36%. And 14% of the staff in China feel that AI will not replace their job. And Asia-Pacific feel that 16% feel that they will not be replaced. And generally speaking, the technology acceptance in China is higher. And when we talk about whether or not the staff will feel that the employer will tolerate their mistakes, the China's number is 28%. That is lower. Maybe it is because of the culture. Another important point is that 60% of the staff in China, they hope to get the feedback on their performance. Okay, these are some numbers, some interesting figures in China.
Thank you very much for sharing these insights. Amy, let's come to you. I think it's fair to say that 10 years ago, ESG was quite an obscure, broadly technical term, and today it shapes how organizations are built, it shapes how investments are done, it shapes how we think about the impact we have on the world. It also, and that's in the report, is something that employees more and more look towards their organization to play a role, not just to monitor it, but also to act on it. I'd like to invite you to share a little bit more of your findings in the report on specifically the climate aspect, maybe, I think, because that's the one where I felt reading the report people reacted the strongest to.
Yes, thank you. Pleasantly surprised by the outcome of the report myself. Vast majority of the people here, like 70% of satisfaction for the jobs, and also coincide with this 54% of the employees. Number one is believe their company is taking the right amount of the action for climate. And two is also they want to push for their employees to take up responsibility. These are two different points. To be fair, I think sustainability services for PwC, it's been around for many, many years. Just like you said, it's not a new thing, but it's been quiet for China. And the big boost of that ESG was driven out of the 30-60 target that was set by the central government. And with that, there's a lot of learning and activities and media and institutions, and including PwC ourselves. The entire ecosystem around climate change has been establishing, developing so fast in China in the last 2 years. And I was shocked to see that nowadays it is not only a boardroom conversation, it is absolutely in a day-to-day conversation. It happens in our office, it happens in our real life. We're trying to move people from taking flights to speed trains. It actually impacts everybody's daily life. And it only took us less than 2 years to make that happen. So even though I don't have, further detailed statistics to support it, but I can tell you that every time when I reflect on the past 2 years, when I first became so-called the ESG sustainability leader for the China firm until today, the world has changed around us, especially in China. So on one hand, I'm very happy to see that a lot of people believe that their companies are taking action. I do believe it is a CEO-driven, boardroom-driven topic still in China. And two is people are so curious, and the speed of learning and the speed of finding solutions together collaboratively is so fast in China, particularly in Asia-Pac in China, that I'm very, very happy. I think we're very lucky to be driving, to be part of that ecosystem, to drive the change. And hopefully, together with organizations like WEF, we can make impact and really do something to contribute. I think at the end of the day, you think about the generation who took the survey, they represent mostly 57% millennials and 8% Generation Z. They are the future leaders of the world, and they will feel that this is a responsibility not only for organizations, large organizations like the listed companies, like ourselves, but they take on these responsibilities upon themselves. I think that's the future that we're all looking forward to. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me just follow up with one point there, and I'll put you on the spot a little bit because I know that's not necessarily in the data. But I did notice reading the report that the sense of urgency to take climate action also through their employer was more than 10% higher in China than it was in the region overall. Yeah. I know it's informed speculation, but what would be your explanation be for that gap?
I think there are a couple of pushes for it. Like I mentioned earlier, the policy push, the compliance push was the original push for it. But nonetheless, nowadays, it's very much like a human-led type of push. China is huge on the consumer market. So the first industries, what we call the first movers, are the ones that really saw opportunities. ESG and the climate change is really creating a lot of opportunities together with the technology and the AI. So the first movers that we saw was the retail consumer market, was the auto space. China is leading in many of these areas. Not only that, but then the solar power and the wind power, China is also leading in this space, and everybody is like really, finally realizing that this is the way to go. And this on another hand, is pushing these knowledge and the solutions to the consumer market. And consumer market are, the employees who took the survey, I think. And then they're bombarded with all these information, not only about climate change, but about a different lifestyle. I think this is why people responded so fast. Like, for example, even for coffee, if you take your own cup to a coffee shop, you get 10% discount. This is how the entire society, I think, from every channel that you can expect, is moving forward. And I think everybody not only sees this as a business, angle or a policy-driven angle, but it's a consumer behavior change, which lead us to a better life, future lifestyle. At the same time, we do a lot of training for everyone. So in PwC, for example, we come up with ESG Go, which is a very savvy game that you can play. I'll be more than happy to show you. And overwhelming, we didn't make it mandatory, but everybody took the ESG Go. So I think approaching 100% of the Chinese employees just do it on their own. They want to learn about it. They want to know about it. They want to know what is it going to do, not only for the business, but for themselves. So that would be my guess. One is a lot of the information really in the marketplace for free. Everybody's educating others, and we're being educated, and we learn fast. Two is we see all these changes in the products, new services, new opportunities really taking place around ourselves, around our day-to-day work, and this leads to a consumer behavior change, leads to a lifestyle change, and this is really happening in China. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, no time for games. We have 5 minutes left. So let's see if we have any questions on the floor. We have a microphone. So if you have a question, please raise your hand, introduce yourself, and wait for the microphone so our wonderful translators in the back can be ready and also hear the sound. Do we have any questions in the room? I think people are still gathering their thoughts. Do I see a question here? Yes, we have a question here in the second row. Could you wait for the microphone, please, and introduce yourself? Thank you.
Hi, my question is, do you think the future labor market will be more skill-based instead of diplomatic-based? Instead of diplomats?
Thank you very much. Peter, you want to jump on that one?
Well, I think undoubtedly yes. We live in a world where there is a worldwide shortage of skills. Most organisations, a common challenge is around how do we attract and retain the appropriate skills in order to execute against our business priorities. There is a shortage. The leader of our US firm, there's a cliche in the people space around this, a war for talent. And what he says actually is, no, the war for talent is over, talent won. And he's absolutely right. And I think we're doing some work actually in conjunction with the World Economic Forum around skills first, which is around how do organisations identify the skills they need and nurture that within their organisations. And I think what that leads to is actually non-traditional ways of attraction and recruitment. So many organisations will hire for degrees, for experience, for job titles, and actually they overlook some of the talent they've got within their organisations and the skills they've got. 37% of workers will say they have skills that aren't on their CV and that they don't use in their day-to-day life because their organisation doesn't know about them. And so I think we're advocating very much a skills-first approach, a skills-based organisation where you hire for skills and for potential. And I think that opens up a much richer vein of talent. And our estimate with the World Economic Forum is that by addressing that and capitalising on it, it will actually bring into the workforce an additional 100 million skilled people in terms of capacity.
We have 2 more minutes. Let's see if there's one more question before I jump to other speakers. Yes, please.
I speak in Chinese.
So I'm from Zhejiang Daily. So I have a question. You just mentioned a lot of figures, and some figures you used the word surprising. And could you talk about more on the surprising part, the most eye-tracking ones? Okay, thank you. So just now, Amy also mentioned ESG, and China is taking the leadership in this region. And another thing also surprises me, so I would like to use the word interesting. Well, traditionally, in China, yes, we pay a lot of attention on the development and training of the skills. But Chinese staff feel that the soft skills, like how to coordinate and how to be flexible, adaptive, they feel this is very important. Compared with the Asia Pacific and the global average, they have more attention put on this. So we feel that this is a change, a significant change. So for me, this is quite interesting.
Maybe the next iteration of the report will be called Hopes, Fears and Surprises. Elton, what was most surprising to you? What was the most surprising result in the report? What raised your eyebrows when you saw the results?
In my perspective, I think if you look at the results within the China market, I think it's very close to us. We have daily interaction with our own employees, our clients' employees, and in that angle, it's not surprising. But when we compare that benchmark with the global or Asia Pacific, I think there are lots of things to learn about how different countries are doing things differently, and probably there are areas that we can learn from each other to really promote the more important theme like ESG, like skills, upskilling, like transformation. I think different countries has its own situation and its own solution and its own sort of impact on the employees. So I think there are lots of areas that we can learn from this survey.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
We're unfortunately running out of time, coming to the end of this press conference. Thank you very much for all the panelists. Thank you for the audience. Go to the PwC website, check out the report. There is plenty more things. I would have loved to hear more about the AI insights you have, about the generational gaps. Lots of interesting reading in there. A great resource for journalists as well. Check out whether you're replaced by AI or not. It's all in there. Thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of the AMNC. Thank you.
Ejército Nacional.